Hi there, this is Justin Krane, Certified Financial Planner Professional and founder of Krane Financial Solutions. Welcome to Money You Got This. So how can you really live? How? By uniting your business money, your personal money with your life and your business. Word up.
Krane Financial is an SEC-registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only, and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products.
What's up, everybody? This is Justin Krane, and I am super psyched to have everyone here today for Money You Got This. We have a great guest. But before we go there, let me just tell you this show is brought to you by Krane Financial Solutions. I'm Justin Krane. I'm a certified financial planner professional, and I offer investment management services and act as a fractional CFO to dentists and business executives. I'm also the author of the book, Money You Got This. This is the time for you to merge your money with your life. You guys ready? All right, let's do this. I'm psyched you're listening to the show. I want to give you this free report, 3 things multimillionaires do to grow their wealth. Just go to coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. That's coolmoneyshow.com to grab it. Thanks. So today's guest is Dr. Jeromy Dixson. The guy has done everything. Forrest Gump, like that shit. He's done it all. He's a top DSO influencer, thought leader, a 3-time Inc. magazine, 5,000 awarded entrepreneur. He founded the DSO Project, the dentistry's first dental support organization and DSO accelerator. He founded Dental Smiles, he founded Smile Services, and he's the founder and president of Smiles Dental Group. So he's a visionary. He's inspirational. I've listened to him on a bunch of podcasts and have learned a lot, and I'm really happy to have you on. So welcome.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
Yes. So how I got into working with dentists, I just started out as a financial advisor and then realized that a lot of these dentists were struggling with their money, and the accountants would do their taxes and whatnot, and the bookkeeper would do like the data entry, but who was really telling them anything about the numbers in their business? And I just kind of evolved and grew into this fractional CFO, and here I am talking to you, and we're going to dive into a lot of the stuff that you're all about. Fantastic. So first off, you're an entrepreneur. I mean, you started out as a dentist, but tell everyone a little bit about the path that you've taken in dentistry and where you are now.
Sure, Justin. Well, it's obviously quite non-traditional. It's not a path that I necessarily followed in someone else's footsteps from A to Z. It's been one that where I've seen, because I'm entrepreneurial, I've seen opportunities and been visionary enough to see a little bit about where things are going and try to position myself in the right manner to capitalize on that and have a lot of fun along the way and enjoy what I do. Obviously, you have to do all of those things. So I guess I'll share. Would you like me to share a little bit of my story then? Just high level. Okay.
Yeah.
So I graduated dental school in 2004 from Southern Illinois University. And one of the things that I'm really grateful for in attending Southern Illinois University is it's right in the backyard of Heartland Dental Care. It's about an hour and a half from Effingham. And so in 2004, 15 years ago now, they were recruiting very heavily from Southern Illinois University School of Dental Medicine. And so I wasn't necessarily interested in group dentistry or DSOs, and that acronym wasn't even around in 2004. But I wasn't necessarily drawn to that, but I was aware of it. And so then when I came back to the Portland, Oregon area, which is where I'm originally from, and started my career, I just had been exposed to it, knew about it, didn't quite know my path. In fact, the path that I was thinking I would take at that time was the very traditional path of coming in, buying out, working for a dentist for a couple of years, eventually buying him out, being in one practice for 35 years and then retiring. That was my goal. But once I came out of dental school, I joined a very small group, just a couple of practices, and I was an employee dentist. And so I, of course, literally cut my teeth that first 6 to 12 months, but soon realized that I was really interested in the business of dentistry, in how do you lead and manage, and how do you systemize a practice, and those sort of things that I wasn't taught in dental school, frankly. And so I just I followed that passion, I guess, that was just budding within me, and I threw myself into Harvard Business Review and all the business books, Good to Great. I mean, I could. I think in about a 4-year period, I read about 175 books or something like that. And they were all business management and leadership. And so I eventually joined as a partner into that small group, bought them out in 2010, and took it from a collection of practices to to more of a functional dental support organization that was systemized and had all the departments. And I had this vision that there was nobody else in the Pacific Northwest that I could see around who was, mid to upper tier, taking and infusing the best of the traditional dental practice and the dental experience and the high quality of care, and sort of like Cheers, where everybody knows your name, with professional management and analytics. And analytics is something that in the dental practice, this was over 10 years ago now, where I started a project because I knew that if I was not going to be in a practice on a day-to-day basis, I had to know the leading indicators and key performance indicators in a practice as real time as I could get. And so I helped co-develop practice analytics with Jeff Clark, a good friend of mine. And then we launched Smiles. We relaunched Smiles Dental, and within about a 5-year period, took it about 4.5 years, did a PE deal in there. We tripled the organization twice, both in locations and in revenue and valuation. So in 2015, I actually left there, went on a sabbatical, took my friends my family, kids. Yeah, my family and kids. We strapped backpacks on our backs and traveled literally around the world. We did not step foot in the United States for a year. It was just about a year, roughly, and carry-on backpacks only. So we had a week's worth of clothes and homeschooled the kids in 35 countries, 6 continents later.
Oh my God. Came
back, changed people. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. And frankly, the only time in my life, Justin, that I left on that, just wanting to go and enjoy my family, enjoy the experience, and worry about what the next steps were later. And so right at the end of the sabbatical, this is a funny story I'll share with you real quick, but I was in Cusco, Peru. So we were going to go to Machu Picchu. It's 11,400 feet elevation there. And I ended up with severe altitude sickness. I also had an atypical pneumonia, so asymptomatic atypical pneumonia. I ended up in the hospital after 3 days in Peru and had to have 2 hyperbaric oxygen treatments to be functional enough to get on a plane and go back to sea level to Lima. And so it was tough cognitively for a bit, because my blood oxygen level was 66%.
Oh my God.
And any of the physicians, doctors, dentists out there, they understand how dangerous that is at those levels. So eventually I got up to about 84%, hopped the plane to Lima. I said, family, keep going. And 2 weeks later, a little over 2 weeks later, we reconnected. When I was in Lima, at a Starbucks in Lima, I put together the business plan for DSO project. I had a lot of time. I built the website myself, the initial website, and got started, and just haven't stopped since I've been back. And in fact, have went from just DSO project consulting to starting an arm of DSO project that does merger and acquisition advisory for investors and dental groups. So it's been an amazing couple of years since I've been back, and so that's a little bit of my story.
Yeah, well, I love that. You look very on point and present with what you're doing, and you look like you're in a good place, and I'm really happy for you. That's super.
I am. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So just a couple of background questions. That was a
I
So
know. I threw it all on you.
the dental support organization versus dental service organization, are those two terms used interchangeably?
Yeah, more or less they are, Justin.
Okay.
Yeah, you may have heard dental services organization. And there was a period where it was dental group practice.
Yeah.
Was the acronym, and it's kind of evolved over the years. And now I use dental support organization because I feel like it symbolizes the purpose of a DSO so well, that you are supportive, literally supporting those practices and helping them. And so, I prefer that acronym. And the Association of Dental Support Organizations, the ADSO, uses support. So I go with that.
Okay, so the show is about money, life, and business, which is everything that you're up to. I got to go back to the first time when you were in that first practice and then you bought in to become a partner in that. It's not easy for dentists to do that because they have student loans, they're making maybe a few $100,000, they got to go buy into some big valuation and they don't have the money for that and blah, blah, blah. So how did you pull that off?
Sure. Well, first of all, it was a slightly different time 15 years ago.
Yeah.
As you know, the student loans were quite a bit less expensive, lower interest rates by a factor of, 3, 4, 5% in some cases. So I had that going for me. I also, at Southern Illinois University actually happens to be one of, at least at the time, was one of the least expensive dental schools in the country. And so my student loan load was probably about a third or less of what the average student loan load is now. Okay. So I had a couple of things there, but the main thing was that I bought into an existing small group which was cash flowing very well. Yeah. And so because of those relationships that my partners had, as well as the relationships that I was able to develop in that first couple of years, banks were willing to.
You got a loan. You got a bank.
Yeah. So I got a loan. I got a bank loan. And I got a bank loan, and that's how I did it. Now, there are times where seller financing can make that happen, but I was able to get a bank loan, and you can still get loans. I have, my clients that work with DSO Project, if they're just starting a DSO, I usually talk to the banks, and I have preferred lenders that I work with, and I can get folks, and I can help them get loans, which are like with including a roadmap and including a limit as long as the ratios are hit. Yeah. And they're able to get it because they're working with me and are able to, stand on my shoulders in terms of the experience. And the banks are all about risk, right? I mean, that's all they're about.
Underwriting department, loan guys, blah, blah. It's like, totally.
Yeah, so that's all they're about. So if they feel like they can put that capital to work at a low risk or a lower risk than they might be able to put the capital somewhere else, in most cases, they're willing to work with you. And dental is seen both in the capital markets as well as in banking as a solid risk.
How long did it take you to pay off that loan? Did you just pay it off over 5 or 10 years? Did you prepay it? What did you do?
It was a 10-year loan initially. Yeah. And it was to buy into the group, it was well over $1 million. So, closer to the $2 million mark initially to buy into this group. And I amortized it over 10 years, and I ended up refinancing it in 2010 when I bought the other partners out, and refinanced it for another 10 years. And then obviously when I brought on private equity investors, was able to pay that off and move forward.
A lot of what we're talking about, this happens so much with dentists and just with business owners, is they have to take this step into growing, and it can either be organic, it could be through debt, or it could be through equity, it's how they do it and how they position it. And one of the things that I just see and that I believe in is that in general, you don't want to borrow money unless there's a dedicated stream of income that will allow you to pay it back. Now, obviously, a bank is not going to lend you money regardless, but people do weird stuff in business and they think it's going to be great and they get themselves into trouble. We'll talk more about that later.
Sure.
It sounds like what you did is you worked it, you paid some cash flow, you did a refi, you bought the other guys out, and the next thing you know, before the private equity guys came in and made a capital investment, you owned more of that cash flow. The debt was paid down a little bit, and you had a bigger percentage of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, for finance, if the bank can look at your existing business and there's adequate cash flow, the ratios are appropriate, they're going to feel good about that risk, and there's going to be available capital for you up to a point. We can talk about that.
The thing is that for anyone that wants to build a DSO or grow a bit, they're going to be faced with these same things. What's the associate going to pay? How much are you borrowing? If it's just dental, what's the hygienist and all that stuff? They're going to look at that. So when you right before the private equity guys took an investment in you, did you have 12 locations? Was that right?
Yeah, it was, I think we closed with 9 or 10 locations in that range. Yeah. Okay.
And then the private equity guys came in, and what happened from there? They owned part of you, and then did you keep it or sell it?
Yeah, and we can get into that too if you'd like. So those markets have changed quite a bit in the 6 years since I sold my DSO. So my deal was basically almost a complete purchase of the business. I didn't retain any what I would consider significant equity, something over 15 or 20%. Now the deals that I'm seeing are somewhere in the range of 30-40% retained equity or north of that for buyers who are continuing on with private equity. So I had a deal where I worked back for a couple of years and completed that deal, but I was kind of as an entrepreneur looking
for your next thing.
I wanted to make sure that I had the ability, I could either stay or go, and so I structured it that way. And those just aren't available right now. Yeah.
So why do the DSO thing is so polarizing? Half of the people love it. The other half are like, oh, it's corporate dentistry. Like, what are they doing? I think it's fine as long as the patient and the doctor and everyone wins. I don't have a problem with it, but it's clear that the business of dentistry and corporate dentistry is such a bigger thing. What do you tell someone that let's say they're doing $1 million or $2 million in their practice, and they're like, okay, well, how am I going to monetize this? Why would they want to consider a DSO? What are the reasons for that? And then also talk about the big elephant in the room, because I see this all the time. It's so funny. The dentists think they can sell for like $4 billion.
They can have one practice and sell it for 10 to 12 or 14 times EBITDA, which most of them don't even know what EBITDA is.
And they're like, oh, EBITDA, net income. Oh, sure, 10 times, done.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So there's a couple questions in there. I'll try to hit the ones, and if I forget something, remind me. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, what about this corporate dentistry? What about DSOs? Why are they so polarizing? And I can tell you, for me, back in 2004, 2005, when I was entering the profession, I looked at the landscape of dentistry and looked at my career and said, I'm seeing grocery stores, I'm seeing tire stores and bookstores and every store you can imagine in every niche industry over time, and with maturity of the industry, consolidating. That just happens. It's like the science of business. And so I didn't at the time, I'll be honest, I looked around at the corporate dentistry, the dental groups, the DSOs, and I saw it down market, Medicaid focused, not high level of quality and care. And I said, okay, I tried to put all those pieces together, and I said, in my career in my late 20s, I don't want to be 40, I'm 41 now. I don't want to be that age in the middle of my career and not be able to compete. But I don't love the DSO corporate or the group practice corporate structure. So what can I do to improve? Can I be a part of making it better? Can I improve it and be proud of what I'm a part of, I guess, and make it better? And so that was the the fuel behind Smiles Dental and Smile Services was we corporate was a dirty word. It was on the dirty word list in our company, and we never saw ourselves. We saw ourselves as a little bit anti-DSO, really putting the doctors first, giving them autonomy, and just having the right structure and support to allow everyone within the organization to thrive. And so that's kind of one piece. Why is it so polarizing? Look, I think anytime there is a disruption in an industry, those who are entrenched in that industry are concerned.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to do with it. And you have younger doctors, you have middle doctors, you have older doctors. This trend affects all of them so differently. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it is fear-based and a lack of understanding of the fact that this is not going away. Yeah. We could put our heads in the sand, but depending on where you are in that career path, you might wake up one day, just like my fear was at the outset, I'm not able to compete. And so that's kind of my take there. And and look, there have been bad actors. There have been some DSOs who did not do the right things, did not put patients first, did not treat doctors and give them autonomy the way that they should. So that's kind of, does that answer that part of the question for you, Justin? Okay. Yeah. Then the last piece, what was the last piece you asked there? Sorry.
Just valuation metrics, dentists thinking that, I'm going to sell for like some crazy number, and then it comes back to reality. And then also like what you think they need to do to get their valuation to their highest,
Sure. Okay. So valuation numbers. There were folks in the industry at some of the conferences and other things, in the last couple of years ago, that were touting these double-digit numbers, and they do a double-digit multiples of EBITDA. And I hope your listeners understand what that is. But so that metric was kind of wild. Nobody knew. So many dentists didn't know what EBITDA even was. They're like, oh, EBITDA, that's what I want. I want more of that. And all it is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's a metric that's similar to net profit. It's not the same, but it's roughly correlated. So the way investors look at a dental group is they value it at a multiple of EBITDA, and depending on the size of the group, the multiple is different. The multiple ranges are different. So what I see in the lower middle market, and that's normally where I play the most, and that's generally 2 to 5 million of EBITDA. Mm-hmm. And that in an industry average of say 20% EBITDA margins, that puts the group at somewhere around 10 to 25 million of revenue, somewhere in that range. And those groups are tending to go for like mid to slightly upper mid single digit multiples of EBITDA. And then the double digit multiples right now in dentistry are reserved for really high performing groups that are scalable, that are sustainable, that have a track record, that have the right leadership, that have the right departments, those sort of things that are in the $8 to $10 million EBITDA range and above. Mm-hmm. And so when you're a dentist in a single office or a couple of offices, you can easily conflate the two, right? You can I can get 10, 12 times for my two practice group or 3 practice group. Yeah. Not the case. But the way you can capitalize on that is if you could do the right things and put the pieces in place to build the group correctly along the lines of what investors want. That's
the thing. Yeah, that's what these guys need to do is if they want to go down, they have to grow. And what I found in just working with them, it's come down to finding the right people. They got to find the right people. If they can't find the people, they're not going to, they can't grow.
Right. So, can't do it yourself.
Yeah. They got to get associates. They got to get the right staff and locate all that. I mean, so sure. I didn't even think of this, but it's so on point because it comes up again is people like, so if you're a solo or you're in a practice with someone else and you want to grow, what advice would you have a dentist or a perio or an endo they're very interested in this to grow. what should they be looking for to source associates, or just bring, I guess it's, or a partner, most likely associates, to bring in and grow? Like, where should they be going to looking? How should they be thinking about it? Stuff like that.
Okay, so building a doctor pipeline, essentially, is what you're talking about. So I like to look at, so I'm going to back into that scenario. One of the things I like to talk about when I lecture about this, building a sustainable DSO, is building a DSO house. What's the foundation? The foundation is your mission, vision, values, your why of your business, right? And then you have your pillars. You have to have the right clinical quality and leadership, right? And that's focused squarely on those doctors. And then you have to have the right management team and the right financing or capital partner. Yeah. And then the roof of that house is simple, scalable, efficient. And I'm not going to go deep into the DSO house concept, but you have to step back and not just focus on doctor pipeline or getting the right doctors. You get the right doctors and you retain the right doctors when you've thought about how you're building the business and you've built it brick by brick the right way. That in a cohesive fashion, that the business functions in such a way that you attract and retain the right doctors. Yeah. Right. And so the culture and all those things. So in terms of building a doctor pipeline, there's obviously a few different strategies for that, and I can tell you that getting the right doctors and retaining them is the single most limiting factor of any dental group or DSO. That is the thing that's going to limit growth, reduce growth, or stagnate your company, right? That goes for Heartland Dental Care, the largest DSO, Pacific Dental Services, all the way down to a 2-practice group. So the way that I like to look at building a doctor pipeline is to have multiple different streams or multiple different channels coming in to give you that to ultimately bring those type of doctors to you. So it depends what type of group you have. Are you hiring new graduates? In which case, you better get yourself in the dental schools, do lunch and learns, provide some education so that you build an email list, you build a phone list, you make contacts, you network, and you are focused on especially the local dental schools, right? Because that's number one. Yeah. Right. And it goes on from there. Yeah. It's building a channel.
Yeah. I'm smiling because a lot of the guys that I work with, they're like dentists. They don't view themselves as like relationship influencer marketer people.
Oh, that's the name of the game.
Which we are. So it's just, I get it. All right. I want to shift gears and spend just a little bit final time on data, numbers, and analytics. Okay. Which I love. So first of all, this is going to be a weird 2-parter, but I heard you talk on this. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to ask him this. Okay. Now, everyone knows the 80-20 rule. Like, what's your take on it, number one? And then talk to us about practice analytics and why you built that, and if it's still used today, in what fashion.
Sure, yeah. So the 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle, is what you're talking about. So the idea that when it's applied to business, and how I look at it with dentistry is that if you're looking at a patient pool, that 20% of your patients are bringing 80% of your revenue. And if you flip that around, you could say that 20% of your patients are also causing 80% of your problems, right? So it's just that idea, and you can look at that in various aspects of life. And it's not like a perfect rule. It might be 70-30. It might be 75-25 or whatever. But that ratio tends to, in nature and in life, kind of hold true. And I think it's a principle in business that I think is also critical. And I know as an executive and as an entrepreneur, I look at my time. What am I? 20% of what I spend my time doing is probably providing around 80% of my income or my success. So it's all about thinking about how you're spending your time, thinking about your business, how you're building it, thinking about your target market in dentistry, and serving the patients that you have in your practice now that are the ones that are. And if you can optimize each of those different elements, then you're probably going to be more successful on balance when you're applying that 80-20 rule. Okay, so does that answer? Is there anything else you want to dive into on 80-20?
We can go down a vortex, but that's fine. I have 72 follow-up questions to that, but whatever.
Okay.
Take me to practice analytics.
Yeah, practice analytics. So Jeff Clark and I have been friends for almost 20 years now. So we met in Chicago, right between my undergraduate and dental school. I lived in Chicago for a year. Met Jeff there. We spent every weekend together, became really good friends. I eventually went to Southern Illinois for dental school. He went off to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh for an MBA. And he is a data and analytics, expert. He's amazing. He's worked for large multinationals and worked on analytics for them. So we started talking about 2007 or so about how do you apply what he does to dentistry? And in talking with him and his interest in dentistry and my interest in kind of figuring out how to manage a group of practices, it just merged, in a perfect manner and created this synergy. And around 2009, I hired him for a project just as a consultant, 1099 type consulting project, to build me a monthly report that could auto pull out of, at the time, EagleSoft, Patterson's EagleSoft practice management system, and populate the appropriate KPIs for each practice as well as the group, and the enterprise as a whole. And so we started with that, and then we just kept building on that, and it eventually, I think he joined my group in about 2011 or so, and he moved from Chicago to I think it was Chicago to the Portland area, so he could work with me full time. So he worked with me in business development. We continued to develop it and improve it and optimize the KPIs. And so after, I think he worked with me for a couple of years, and then just culturally and just kind of the fit didn't seem to be perfect. And so although I saw a lot of value in what he was doing, he had this vision for, hey, this is something that I can scale. This is something that I can take from where we have it and improve and continue to improve it, create software for this that is more able to be mass disseminated and really help out a lot of single practices as well as DSOs. So that's how it happened. So I said, Jeff, great, let's continue to be development partners. We'll work together. Let's scratch each other's back here. Let's help each other out. Let's create a win-win. And so he went and did that. I think that was in 2013. He launched Practice Analytics, and it is in use now. It is one of the there's several out there. It's one of the top several, that's out there. And I like it because I built it for a group, for a DSO. You can use it as a single practice if you just have one practice or two. But I love it because at the click of a button, as an executive, I can pull up a dashboard that tells me there's 6 or so KPIs that are most important to me. And I can click a button and it can show enterprise level, by region, or by office. And then I can click another button and it can drill into restorative, it can drill into hygiene, it can drill into all the different aspects. And the other thing about it, there's a nice piece of it, and there's so much to it. I mean, go look online about it, have your listeners go online, just Google it, you'll see it. But I like it because one of the things that Jeff wanted to build into it was an ability to, at the click of a button, optimize low-hanging fruit in terms of patients that have treatment, that have insurance, that need to get in. And it's really easy for front desk people to use. And then one more thing I'll add, and then we can move on to the next topic on that, is the other thing I like about it is I think that every person in the office, every staff member, whether it's office manager, hygiene coordinator, or front desk assistant, or hygienist or dentist, each one of those people should have 3 to 5 key performance indicators that they can go into practice analytics or some analytics software and track and look at and measure performance and speak to their dentist, their doctor about, speak to their practice manager, office manager about. All of those things I think are critical to try to get all the people in the office rowing the boat the same direction and focusing on the things that are most important.
That leads into my question of, okay, so you have this data, like how do you manage it and who should be looking at it? A lot of times it falls on the dentist, but man, he or she, they need support. They can't just be them. And then they get bogged down in like minutia and they don't have perspective and they feel like it's all on them. I like what you're saying about having different people have different KPIs and then report to the dentist, if not the team, on that. I think that managing what you're measuring, in other words, you're measuring something, and a lot of dentists, they think, okay, well, if I'm not measuring anything, I have no problems because I don't know, right?
Right. Can't manage what you don't measure.
Yeah, like if my head's in the sand, I have no problem. But then what happens is it's at least the people that I'm dealing with, like they're middle-aged guys. The valuation comes in, and then it's back to, okay, we need to get this thing going. Then it gets back into these KPIs and looking at the data and really trying to grow.
So I will help all of your listeners right now. I will share one very, very short story about the power of this. So when we first implemented this was Jeff and I's first month.
I think I know where you're going with this.
You want me to say, I can share it or not?
But go it. Because
Okay.
I think I heard you talk about this.
Yeah, and the numbers may be off,
No, but it's
5%, but the
good.
story, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the KPIs that I look at every practice is hygiene recall rate. And there's different words for that, but essentially it's how many patients leave your office after their new patient exam or after a hygiene recare appointment or recall appointment with their next hygiene appointment. Okay, so I had one office. It was actually my first office that I was in. At the time, we had a really good dentist in there. We had a really great office manager, really great team, brand new facility. And it was stagnant for like a year. It just wasn't growing. And I would ask, I'd ask the question, does everyone leave with an appointment? Oh yeah, like 90, almost everybody. There's very few cases where somebody doesn't. So when we started measuring it, and I hope I say the same number, but it was somewhere around, I remember it as being about 45% or something like that. Okay. And I like to see it at 85, 90% or low 90s. That would be really optimal. But somewhere in that 85 to 90% range or higher is what you want, what a well-functioning practice is doing on that metric. And so we brought it to their attention, and they didn't believe it, of course. And they're like, how could that be? But we're like, hey, look, let's just all focus on this. Let's make sure everybody does. We'll circle back in a month and we'll look at it. And within, I want to say about 6 months or something like that, we went from the worst practice to the best, or one of the very best practices in the group. And it was like 87%, something like that. And guess what happened to that practice? It grew because there wasn't a sieve. Because when you look at a dental practice, you have your active patients, you have new people coming in, new patients into the bucket, and you have a little bit of attrition. Sure. And if you look at, so you want to hold as many in that bucket as you can, then your practice grows. It's funny how that works. And then, and so this is just one of those major KPIs that just looking at it, and everybody looking at objective numbers in a very short period of time took a practice that from stagnating to 10% plus growth.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a double, and that really flows to the bottom line, because I think I've read a lot on this, like the more hygiene, the more it leads to everything else. And as long as people are continue to come in for hygiene, that's recurring revenue. It covers a lot of your overhead, and plus it leads to other stuff. So,
and for dentists to do treatment, they have to see patients. They have to do
you
exams.
You can't make stuff up.
You can't, like, that's just, it's like A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
So you can't, you can't like short circuit that equation. It is what it is.
Yeah. Amazing. It has been so good to have you on. I have one final question that has nothing to do with anything,
Sure.
but I think it's good for people to learn about how you do what you do. So everyone somehow needs in life and business to be resilient and get rejuvenated and just feel good. So what are the things that you do, whether it's diet, exercise, meditation, playing your guitar, whatever it is, growing tomatoes, whatever it is, what are you doing for fun, but also to make yourself be rejuvenated and refreshed?
Yeah. So that question reminds me of a book that helped me when I was mired in the depths of building this business and working 70 or 80 hours a week. And I'm talking about building the DSO. I have a little better work-life balance now, and I've learned, and I'll share a little bit of that with you. But there's a book called The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Laird and Tony Schwartz. It is a great audiobook too, if you want to just throw it on your commute. What it is, it talks about a corporate athlete. It talks about the just like athletes need downtime for their bodies to rejuvenate for optimal performance. As corporate athletes, we need the same thing. We need to have relaxation, time to de-stress. And so over time, I got really rigid on my times. If I was on vacation, I had somebody in charge to put out the fires. And if there was literally something burning down, that person could get a hold of me. Otherwise, I wasn't doing email. I wasn't doing phone calls. I was out. And I think that's, if you can do it. Now, sometimes you can't, right? But to the extent you can, try to do that. I'm much better than I used to be. So now the things I do, I've generally always exercised, weightlifted, cardiovascular workout, whether that's running, elliptical, biking, cycling, that kind of thing. So I have a very rigid schedule where I move my body for an hour a day. I do 3 to 5 sessions of weightlifting for about 40 minutes every week. I spend time with my children, my family. I go on date nights with my wife. I get outside and take a breath. And the other thing that I've been trying to do more, there's been some science on this, like what's the best way to structure your workday, and what the science is showing, that it's about 50 minutes of focused work and then about a 17-minute break is like the optimal. And you just do that over and over and over. And I know that's hard to do sometimes, but I've been trying to do that more. And it's actually, and I, this is all subjective, but I do feel like I'm more efficient and I'm able to do things at a higher level in less time. The more I get toward that ideal. I'm not there. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm there, but I think it's mind, it's body, and really being, you might have heard on another podcast where I talked about my sabbatical and the idea of having a Sagmeister, of having, taking time away. And I found, even before I did my sabbatical, when I was working, if I had a week vacation, that was when I came up with the best ideas for how to improve your business. And so just finding out what works with you, using those principles of physical health, mental health, emotional health, connecting with your people, whether that's your family, your friends, your community. I think it's a holistic approach to optimal performance, not unlike an athlete that is a high-level elite athlete that does sports.
I love it. Well, thank you for your perspective. It's been great to have you on, Jeromy. Everyone listening is going to learn a lot, and they're going to want to learn more about you and from you. Where can we send them?
Sure. Well, there's first of all, it would be my email, and I answer everybody's email. I have all kinds of people I help out, whether they're formally working with me or not. I love to give back to the industry and help people out and share, even for a 20-minute call or 30-minute call. I talk to people all the time. So Dr. Dixson at dsoproject.com. DRDIXSON. Don't forget the S. That's the hard one everybody forgets. At dsoproject.com. And then my websites are just dsoproject.com. That's the consulting site. And then the the merger and acquisition advisory site is just dsoprojectadvising.com. Very simple.
Perfect. We'll put those in the notes. Thank you so much. It's been great to have you. You've been glowing for roughly 45 minutes.
Hey, I love talking about this stuff, Justin.
Dude, you're happening.
I'm all about.
Amazing. Amazing. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great one.
Have a question? Want to get in touch with us? Need some help and advice with your finances? Just go to coolmoneyshow.com and reach out to us. That's coolmoneyshow.com.
Krane Financial Solutions is an SEC-registered investment advisor. However, such registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and no inference to the contrary should be made. A copy of our current written disclosure statement discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request. Information contained herein is for informational and illustrative purposes only and general in nature. It should not be considered specific financial planning or investment advice, or a recommendation to buy or sell any type of securities or other investment products. No investment decision should be made based solely on any information provided herein. We do not provide legal, accounting, or tax services. We recommend that all investors seek out the services of competent professionals in any of the aforementioned areas. Certain information provided has been obtained from third-party sources that we believe reliable. However, it's not been independently verified and is not guaranteed.